Good evening. Welcome to the gathering at Scott Memorial Home Edition. This is Pastor Rachel coming to you live from my another dining room table because we are in the midst of renovating our house. So it's great to see you guys. A couple of announcements. We do have a Monday Thursday service this week at 7 o'clock. You do not want to miss it. It's going to be a really great opportunity to engage more deeply in Holy Week. And then on Easter Sunday, we're going to have our 6:30 a.m. sunrise service in the prayer garden. The men are making pancakes and eggs and bacon for us afterwards. And then we have worship at our regularly scheduled times of 9 and 10:15. Today was so much fun. Palm Sunday with our icon. I want to thank everybody who helped make today happen. I want to thank Curtis Hickman from being there, one of the first volunteers there today, last to leave, and Dave Colburn as our finance and stewardship chairs. It was a great way to celebrate and end our stewardship campaign. So, very last plug, I promise. We have online pledge cards that you can fill out, or in church. We might have some sitting around, although we really won't be handing them out. To make your pledge for 2019, we're doing it a little later. Normally it's in the fall, but we had our capital campaign this fall. So if you want to help support the ministries of this church, please do. And there's a video that we're going to be sharing this week that has people from the community talking about the difference our church has made in ministering to those in need right here in Hinton Road. So please check out that video. We have some really great city contributors that made that video happen, so we're grateful for them as well. So it's been an awesome and amazing Sunday. And today I did a little bit of a different approach because we were supposed to have worship outside. Because of the rain, we did the kind of outside later, but worship inside. And if you've never been to our church, out in the back there's this big like football field type space. And when I was reading through the Gospels, the name for oil press in Greek is Gethsemane. So the Garden of Gethsemane wasn't really like a little garden, but like a big field where there was an oil press and work was done. And so I was like, oh, let me talk about the Garden of Gethsemane in the equivalent of our own garden here at the church. And so I'm looking at all four gospel accounts of the Garden of Gethsemane so that you can really learn, because we have a Bible study starting only on Zoom Room, so you guys can all join us virtually. And it's based on the book How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth. So this is a sermon that kind of helps you unpack how we look at Scripture, compare certain gospel accounts to others to get a fully complete picture. And when I read all four gospel accounts of the Garden of Gethsemane, it's a reminder to me that this has to be true. This has to be the Word of God, because if someone wanted to contrive or make up a story of Jesus, the Messiah, they wouldn't write about a Messiah who was fearful and afraid feeling sorrowful out of deep fear. That's not the image of a Messiah that you always want to see, and yet that's what we see here, at least in two of the four gospel accounts. So, without further ado, let's dive in. We're going to be looking at Matthew 26, 36 to 46, Mark 14, 32 to 42, Luke 22, 39 to 46, and John 18, 1 and 12, 27. Okay, and so this all comes from Kurt Attley's book. He's the editor of the synopsis of the four Gospels. So he lays them out for us. So when we read this, Matthew, Mark, and Luke all talk about how they met in a place called Gethsemane. Only John calls it a garden. In John 12, or John 18, 1, it says, when Jesus had spoken these words, he went forth with his disciples across the Kidron Valley, where there was a garden. In Matthew, Mark, and Luke, it says, when they'd sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane. In Mark, it says, they went to a place which was called Gethsemane. In Luke, it says, he came out, as was his custom, to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples followed him. And when he came to the place, he said to them, and in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, you'll see that throughout this, Matthew and Mark are kind of like the dynamic duo, okay? They stick together a lot through this whole account. John is kind of off on his own tangent. He just kind of mentions they went to the garden, and that's about it. Jesus gets arrested, and Luke gives us a different image or portrait of who Jesus is. But basically, we know from Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Jesus gets to the garden with his disciples, and he says, you guys stay here and pray. Well, I go and pray. In Matthew, Mark, he says, you guys sit here, I'm going to go pray. In Luke, he tells his disciples to pray, but we read throughout Matthew and Mark that Jesus is wanting his disciples to pray for him. He realizes that his death is imminent, and that it's going to be a painful and horrible experience, and he wants all the help and comfort and support and encouragement he can get from his friends. So So in both Matthew and Mark, he kind of groups the disciples differently. He gets there and he says, okay, guys, I want you to sit here and watch while I go pray. And then he pulls Peter, James, and John out into a group even closer to him. And this is where you see the beauty of the parallels, okay? So in the Gospel of Matthew, we read that he takes Peter, James, and John with him. He begins to be sorrowful and troubled, and says to them, my soul is very sorrowful, even unto death. Remain here, watch with me. And going a little farther, he fell on his face and prayed. So in Matthew, he's falling on his face to pray. In Mark, it says he falls on the ground. So again, like no control, just overwhelmed by all this sorrow. And in the Gospel of Luke, he has a little bit more control. He kneels. It says he knelt down to pray. And the sorrow isn't as present there in Luke as it is in Matthew and Mark. And when you look at the word for sorrow here, there's a writer, Luke Timothy Johnson, and the author of the expositor's commentary on this talks about how the word for sorrow, I'm sorrowful here, even unto death, as Jesus says, that this is a deep type of grief or sadness that comes either from envy because someone has something that you want, you can't get it, which is not the case here, or sorrow from deep fear. So Jesus is afraid. He knows what's going to happen. He knows how painful it's going to be, and that brings him deep sorrow. So we read in Matthew and Mark that he's sorrowful. In Matthew it says he's sorrowful and troubled. In Mark it says he's distressed and troubled. The word for troubled is the same here, and the word for sorrowful is the same. So Jesus is not this strong military commander, right? We see kind of this humanity of Jesus happening before our eyes as he falls to his face. And the cry in Matthew, Mark, and Luke of Jesus in his prayer is all the same. My Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt. So in all three instances, Jesus is saying, this cup of suffering is going to be intense. I'm on the brink of death. And if there's any other way, if I don't have to do this, please, God, intervene. Please, God, save me. And we see these, when you line up the parallel accounts of all three Gospels, you see Jesus crying out to God in different ways. So in the Gospel of Matthew, he says, my Father, if it's possible, may this happen. In Mark, he doesn't say my Father, he says Abba, Father, like Daddy, please don't let this happen. In the Gospel of Luke, he doesn't say Daddy, he doesn't say my Father, he just says Father. He's more formal and official. And again, in the Gospel of John, it's something entirely different, and not in chapter 18, but in chapter 12, we see the closest thing we have to kind of Jesus' reaction to his upcoming crucifixion. And in 12:27, Jesus says, now is my soul troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour? No, for this purpose I have come to this hour. And so in John's Gospel, he's like deeply resolute. He's like, it's kind of like the memes that you see where it's like, hold my beer, I got this, ready? I'm ready for the crucifixion. Jesus isn't sorrowful, he's not fearful, he's not afraid in any way. And so that's the difference that we see as we line up all these accounts. So going on, we get more details about how the disciples are reacting as Jesus is praying and crying out to God. In Matthew and Mark, we read that 3 separate times Jesus comes up to the disciples and to kind of check in on them. I mean, he's on the brink of death, and he's sad, and he's crying out to God, and he comes back to the disciples time and time again. And what are they doing? They are sleeping. And he's like, wake up, can't you just stay awake with me 1 hour? I mean, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. But their eyes are heavy, they can't handle it. We read in the Gospel of Luke, he shifts this sorrowful feeling from Jesus to the disciples, as he says, well, the disciples can't stay awake because they're sorrowful unto death, that they are so sad because of their fear of what's going to happen to Jesus. But time and time again, the disciples let him down, reminding Jesus that he feels alone and abandoned now, and he's going to feel even more so in his crucifixion, as even the presence of the Holy Spirit abandons him, and he dies with the full wrath and sin and anger of the world upon him as he suffers this brutal and agonizing death. Okay, so we look at the parallel Bible is really helpful, but if you look at it like in Clark's book, what you'll notice is it does leave out a few verses from the Gospel of Luke, and it leaves out verse 33 and 43 and 44. Sorry, my dog keeps walking by and messing up the curtains here. My husband's supposed to be watching the dogs, but he's watching a game instead. So what happens in those two verses is after Jesus cries out and prays, an angel comes and encourages him. And then it says that he enters into agony, and the Greek word for agony is only used here in all of the New Testament. And it's a word that explains what wrestlers do when they're really battling someone, when they're taking it to the mat with someone else. And so Jesus is in agony, he's struggling, he's wrestling with God's will, with this future that he knows is coming upon him, that is not going to be easy. And so as he's in agony, it says that he's sweating and there are like drops of blood falling to the ground. So what do we learn by each of these parallel accounts of the Garden of Gethsemane? We got Matthew and Luke, where Jesus is kind of afraid and fearful and crying out for help. Luke, where he seems more like an athlete, like struggling, taking on this crucifixion with sweat falling to the ground like blood, and angels coming to kind of be like a coach to encourage him to keep going. Or John, where he's like, whatever, I got this, it's a piece of cake. What I love about this is if we were true and honest about what people see when something is going down, all the accounts don't perfectly line up. Everybody sees different glimpses of Jesus as he's preparing for his crucifixion. Some people see more of the humanity of Jesus. Some people see more of the divinity of Jesus. And it's a powerful reminder to us that when you face difficult situations, as I'm sure you will in your life, when you feel like you don't know if you're actually going to survive something, this experience or situation, whatever it is that you're enduring, is so tough, it's so hard. You just don't know if you're going to survive it. However you respond in that moment, Jesus has been there. Jesus gets it. If you respond with fear, falling to the ground on your face and saying, God, I can't handle this. Please take this away. I don't want to suffer. I don't want to experience this. Or if you feel like, okay, God, this is going to be tough, but I've trained for this. I'm ready. I'm an athlete. I can take it on. Or if you are more like the Jesus that we see portrayed in the Gospel of John, where you're like, you know what? I know that this is terrible and it's awful. I know I may not survive it, but I'm ready. Bring it on. Let's go. You serve a Savior that has been there, that has walked that road with you. And then the other reminder for me as a pastor that I just think is beautiful is this focus on the disciples, which we see most prominently in Matthew and Mark's Gospel. Luke focuses more on Jesus. John doesn't really include it at all. But we see that time and time again, Jesus in his darkest moments needed community, wanted community around him to support and encourage him. And that's the purpose of the church. That's why I'm here. That's why the Gathering of Scott Memorial is here for you, so that no matter what it is you're facing or enduring, you don't have to go through it alone. We are there with you. But then here's the reality. If you have ever left a church or been burned by a church, the reality is that just like the disciples, sometimes your church community, your faith community can fall asleep on you. They cannot be there in the way that you want them to. And I hope and pray that our response is always like Jesus. I mean, think about this. Jesus was fully God, okay? So more than any of the Avengers, he had complete control of the situation. And he could have said, you know what? I don't want to be obedient to you, God. I am here and I'm supposed to die for these people, to save them and reconcile them to you. And what are they doing? My closest friends that I poured my heart and soul into for the last 3 years are asleep when I need them the most. Like, peace out, forget this. Let them fix it on their own. Let them wake up and try to save the whole world the way I'm doing right now. These disciples utterly failed Jesus, and yet he woke them up and said, okay, my betrayer is here. Let's get this party started. And he continued on that journey to the cross, even knowing that at his darkest moment, the disciples had failed him. He was still ready and willing to die for them. And that means that he is even more so for us ready to remind us that his death and his resurrection gives us hope. So if you ever feel like you've let God down, or if the church community has let you down, Jesus has been there. He's done that. He gets it. And he longs to go with you and help you reconnect to God, to others, to yourself, and to creation. So I hope you guys have a really amazing evening, a great whole week that you plug into worship services wherever you are locally, or here at the Gathering of Scott Memorial, and join us Easter Sunday, 8 p.m. again here on the dining room table for an Easter Sunday message. Thanks, guys. Have a great night. Bye.